afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Memphis Theological Seminary's chat about chaplaincy. We are so excited about this week and the opportunity that we're going to have to get some real life experience from some chaplains, some who have come through Memphis Theological Seminary and others who have worked with us here. We are excited. We're going to let them. I am Felicia Levant, and I am one of our admissions associate recruiters, and we are going to allow them to introduce themselves we'll do it according to my screen. So we'll start with Noah, then Benita, and then Rabbi Aby in that order. How about that? So take it away, Noah.
Hey, everybody. My name is Noah Quinton. I am a chaplain at the West Cancer Center here in the Memphis, Tennessee area. And I've been doing chaplaincy work for 6 to 7 years now.
All right, wonderful. Benita?
I am Benita Livingston. I am a chaplain at the VA Medical Center here in Memphis, and I have been a chaplain at the VA for 20 years. And I also work part-time for 5 years at it was the Med at that time, but at Regional 1.
Awesome, welcome. Rabbi Aby?
Hi, everyone. My name is Aby Schachter Gampel. I'm really glad to be here. I serve as the Director of Spiritual Care at Memphis Jewish Home and Rehab, and I've been working there for the past 3 years and involved in chaplaincy work for 4.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, again, we are excited to have all of you here with your diverse backgrounds, serving in chaplaincy in various capacities, but in the in the hospital arena. So want to start out by asking, let's see, Chaplain Livingston, since you pull rank as the senior chaplain, how would you feel, would you say the chaplain market has changed in the past 20 years? We can't hear you. You must have muted yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. Of course, I will always be coming from the VA perspective,
Okay.
because that's the only, time that I've worked, only place that I've worked. In the past 20 years, in the VA, have had the war of the OAF, and the veterans that have come back have been younger. When I started, we were mostly dealing with Vietnam veterans and their care and their mental health. But once the war started and veterans began to come back, they were much younger. So we had to develop programs that were more centered toward them. And in the VA, we have specialties that we can be a part of, or we can be trained in. Of course, you can get certifications in hospice and palliative care, drug and alcohol, PTSD, mental health, suicide prevention, and moral injury, which is a big one now that we are can be certified in, which are things that we didn't have before. Before it was more so just kind of basic mental health, but because of what we've learned, and we have had to expand mental health into different areas, like suicide prevention, moral injury, and not just PTSD and drug and alcohol.
So with that, it's interesting you said that you mentioned mental health. Do you feel that with this younger group in particular, that people are more open to seeking help and counseling as it pertains to mental health? People used to be in denial and nobody wanted to acknowledge or admit it. So would you say that one of the changes is that people are more open to seeking help in that regard?
Yes, they are more open because we are trying to dispel so much of the stigma around mental health. But a lot of the men in the military, are real cautious about saying that they have mental health problems. But they're coming more and more, and seeking help. So
okay. So I would assume then at the VA, you're dealing more with individuals, not as much with the grief counseling or the types of pastoral care that we would normally associate with chaplaincy, would you say? Or
No, we still do a lot of grief counseling. My area, I have worked with the OAF, but
Mhm.
I've also worked with hospice and palliative care, and right now I am in the ICU as
Okay.
well as the Women's Center. So I've kind of been all over, but yeah, we still have basic things that I have to do, like grief counseling, um, talking with family members, dealing with, death and dying and all of that.
Okay. Okay. Noah, so you've been doing this 5 or 6 years. So it's been a little while since you've been out of seminary, but how would you say that seminary was impactful in your development? Do you think that it adequately prepared you? I know you, of course, had to do your CPEs, but do you think seminary was impactful or helpful in your preparation?
Absolutely. I think that for me, I think just the process of going through theological education and being in that environment really kind of shaped my mind in a way that helped me be open to the possibilities that I could use that degree for. And yeah, so I think just the process alone, I mean, even the classes, of course, specifically, I took a lot of pastoral care classes because I had an interest in chaplaincy and doing pastoral care work. And so I made sure that that was a route that I took. If I could take electives in pastoral care, grief and loss, ritual classes, things like that, that was important and really, really helped and continues to help. There are still resources that I'll pull from some of those classes that that I remember that were very helpful. And yeah, I mean, just the environment alone can really help guide and shape in a way that prepared me, I feel like.
Awesome. Well, ironically, Nora and I go back way back. We were just talking about earlier. As a matter of fact, we did our MDiv work together, and Noah has also worked at Regional One, done chaplaincy at Regional One. And I was talking to another former classmate, matter of fact, Curtis Mormon, who serves in chaplaincy in Jackson, Tennessee. And one of the things I asked him, speaking to your MDiv classes, I said, well, Curtis, why would a person need an MDiv to do the why do you think that would help them to be a better chaplain? Because in the MDiv we deal with theology of worship, we deal with preaching, we deal with more than just pastoral care. So why couldn't a person just focused on the pastoral care aspect? And one of the things he was sharing with me was that in just depending upon the context and the situation that you're ministering to, there are opportunities to utilize what you develop in those classes. He was saying he's baptized, he's, administered the ordinances or sacraments as far as communion. So do you think any of those other classes, did they ever come into play for you, Noah, or either any of you in your context? Do you ever do anything besides pastoral, the pastoral care and counseling as
Well,
a
I think
chaplain?
in some ways it helped to, at least make me more aware of what other traditions might be doing, how others are involved in worship in those spaces. And I mean, there are times that, we may be called upon to speak or lead a service of some kind in a hospital setting or wherever it might be. And being prepared, I think, to lead that in a way that can welcome all people in, no matter what their faith tradition is important. And so some of the ways in which we did that in seminary, at least from my experience, we had to look at other ways that worship experiences were performed and how other traditions did that. And yeah, so I think that was helpful, and of course.
Awesome. Rabbi Aby, what would you say to that as far as seminary and how seminary has prepared you, and do you have an opportunity to utilize any of your skills besides what you've done with the pastoral care and counseling?
Sure. So my answer to that would be yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, in that seminary, I guess whatever seminary or kind of process of ordination that you're going through obviously gives you some type of foundation, some basics in terms of a certain sense of what it means to be a chaplain, or what it means to be a rabbi, or what it means to be a reverend. But no, because it depends on where you get trained. But if, as you were mentioning, CPE, clinical pastoral education, that's a whole education in and of itself. And that's an entire schooling that I would say is built on the foundation of the schooling that you went to, or if you might want to argue, it kind of totally undoes that and builds you a whole new foundation. And so I would say that in some ways, yes, it was, very helpful, but in other ways, it was a whole new kind of educational way and theological and psychological way of thinking and approaching us through CPE. To answer the previous question, I would say the other hat that I wear often is educator. I'm educating family members or staff members about fill in the blank, whether it's about well-being and wellness, whether it's about understanding the disease course that a certain loved one is going through. Those are kind of things that I think of myself as, and sometimes wearing the hat of the educator in the room.
I have to unmute myself. That is really awesome. One question that we have from Facebook is whether or not the chaplaincy internship program is still offered at the VA, Chaplain Benita. Are they still doing that there?
Chaplain internship, or do they mean CPE
I
residents?
think they mean CPEs, because I know that.
Yes, we are still, we still have a CPE program.
And
We-
how does one have an opportunity to participate in that program? Who would they need to reach out to?
Chaplain Patrick Whiteford, he is our CPE supervisor. You just
Okay.
have to call 901-577-7326. That's our office, and he can talk to you all about it. Our program runs from September through May. Yeah, September.
Benita, repeat his last name and that phone number again, please. We're putting it in the chat.
Okay, Chaplain Patrick Whiteford.
Whiteford, okay. And what's that phone number again?
901-577-7326.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
We don't do the single units anymore.
Okay.
People could just need one unit. We don't do those. We
Okay,
only have the residency program.
okay. And so do they have to have any experience other than just the experience they're getting through their master's program to get into qualify? Is it a very competitive program, since you're saying that you only have the residency?
Yeah, it's pretty competitive. You have to have your MDiv. And of course, you have to be endorsed. You have to be ordained or in that ordination process to be accepted. It's preferably, they want you to have one unit, but if not, then that's okay. Okay.
Yeah, because I think, well, where do we get the one unit if you
I
all
know,
are giving the one unit?
I know. Methodists may be doing one units, but we used to, but we don't anymore.
Okay, and so ordination is required, you say?
It is, it's not required, but hopefully you're working towards it.
Okay.
Okay.
And I could see where that would be beneficial when we're talking about administering of the communion and baptism and those types of things. So that would be helpful and would make sense.
Yeah.
And
Especially
then,
if you want to get a job in the VA, you will have to have all of that in order.
okay. One question that comes up is, I don't know if you all are familiar with the fact that MTS is now offering a Master of arts and Christian ministry with a chaplain emphasis. Somebody asked about the Master of Arts in Religion, which we don't offer anymore. But the Master of Arts in Christian ministry, of course, which is a 48-hour program, unlike the MDiv 84-hour program. And the primary difference is that, and that's why I was asking earlier about why do you need the MDiv and why do you need the worship and the preaching and all of those particular classes, because the Master of Arts in Christian Ministry is a more pure, concentrated, where you would still have the foundational courses of your biblical studies and your theological studies, but they have more of the electives, and the electives do focus more on the pastoral care versus the more robust theologies and the theology and than the worship and preaching classes. So is it possible in a hospital setting? Is the MDiv the standard requirement to work in any of the settings that you all are currently serving in? I know, Rabbi Aby, you're not in the hospital per se, but Noah and Benita, are they requiring MDivs?
Yes, they
Still
require MDivs.
Okay. What about your context, Noah?
Yes and no, I guess you could say. I mean, to my experience, most hospitals are going to require a Master of Divinity or some kind of equivalent degree, depending on your faith tradition, if that doesn't fall within that faith tradition. And some of it goes towards the board certification requirement. So board certification is really what most hospitals are going to want and require at some point. And board certification, particularly through the Association of Professional Chaplains, requires that you have 72 hours of 72 graduate hours.
Wow.
So they have an associate certification program, I think, that you can do that only requires 48 hours, but most hospital settings are going to require board certification, the full board certification at some point. And a lot of places will give you grace to, you've got a couple of years to get that process done, but the expectation is you've already completed the master's work and the the CPE work and those kind of things. So yes, it's some type of master's degree, MDiv, with those hours.
Okay, so that 72 hours is the number of hours required for the board certification, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think for the standard route of board certification, there are a couple of different routes. There's the associate certification and the board certification, at least the last time I looked, unless they've changed that in the last year or so.
What about in your context, Rabbi Aby?
Yeah, I would just echo what Noah said. In any type of healthcare setting, people are going to be looking at CPE and then looking at board certification. But in order to get to any of those steps, you need to have that first step, as Noah was talking about.
Okay.
So those are all, it's kind of a bundle right now.
Okay. So in pretty much the hospital context, they do need the certification, and they're going to need the greater number of hours associated with that certification, and of course the CPE is what we're saying. Now, I actually was speaking with someone the other day who was saying it was very challenging for them. Said they've been serving as a chaplain in another context or capacity for a number of years, but the certification process is really complicated. Can any of you speak to the board certification and how that process works? Like, do you have to have that one unit or something, or can you all speak to that? You can tell I don't know chaplaincy, so I'm the perfect person to be asking these questions. Anybody? Somebody? I take it that you are all board certified, or are you?
Yeah, I think we all just unmuted ourselves. I think we're all ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna let Benita start off.
Now go ahead on, Aby. Rabbi.
Okay, sure. Thank you. What was your? Yeah, so board.
I was asking.
We could talk about board certification for. Yeah, there's a set of requirements. I'm sure I'm gonna miss one or two of them, and that's why I'm glad that Noah and Benita are here on the call with me. So they'll jump in and say, "Hey, you forgot that." So there are various different ways in which you can become board certified. So I'm Jewish, so I'm certified through the Jewish Chaplains Group, which is called NAJC. NACC is for our Catholic brothers and sisters, and then there's APC, which Noah had mentioned before. I guess it's called the Association of Professional Chaplains. Is that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are the three major bodies, groups that do certification. The requirements, I believe, but I'm sure you'll correct me at some point, so I'm looking forward to it, are 4 units of CPE, so 4 units. I don't have to go into what each unit is, but maybe that'll be a follow-up question. And then there is a requirement, I believe, within NAJC, but probably APC as well, that you're working for a year afterwards as well. So I forget the number of hours, but it basically is equivalent of you've now been working as a chaplain for basically a full year after your 4 units of CPE. And then you need to present a whole portfolio. So for the certification that I went through, it was 4 large essays. So one is a spiritual autobiography, which I think was, a number, big essays, spiritual autobiography. One was a kind of 2 are verbatim. So those are, if you're familiar with the CPE world, then you'll know about that. So those are, those accounts of providing care. And then another one is a competency essay. I'm sure all of us are going to nod our head and smile about competencies. But competencies are really important. So basically it's standardizing our care and showing about, hey, I'm aware of all of these various competencies that God knows, 38 competencies, 40, there's a lot of competencies, and you got to write on each one. And so that's a large essay as well. And then you get various references, and then you tie that, package up into a bundle, and you send it off, and then you have an interview, and there's a panel of chaplains. And so there's a chair of that panel, and there's other chaplains, and you have a, hour and a half conversation about your work and who you are and what kind of chaplain you are. And then at that point, if you pass, you become a board certified chaplain.
Sounds like a lot of work. How long does it
It's a heck of a lot of work. The heck of a lot of work.
How long would it normally take to complete that process?
I want other folks to chime in as well. It took me 6 months, 6 to 9 months.
Oh, that's not so bad.
I mean, but yeah, no, it is. It is so bad. It is so bad.
Benita, what do you know?
It's a lot of material gathering and a lot of writing, and you could go before them after you send your packet, and they may not approve you. You have to go back again. So it's quite a process. I am board certified through VA. VA has a board certification as well. And it's been a while. But if I wanted to take my VA board certification, I could take that material to APC and be certified without going through the whole thing all over again. But it is a process, but it is worth doing, because now, you have to be board certified if you're going to keep a job. And sometimes you have to be board certified before they even will accept your application for employment.
But you don't have to be board certified before you can do your CPEs, because you have to have the CPEs units first. So this is my next question, something that you kind of just alluded to, Benita. So Rabbi AB, you were saying that you were certified through NAJC, I think it was?
Correct, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can that certification work across lines? You know what I'm saying? So like Benita was saying, her VA one, she could actually be certified through APC. Is that the one you said, Noah?
Yes.
So
you know what I'm saying?
So the specific answer to that question is no. Like, I don't think there's reciprocity between NAJC and APC. But if you looked at any listing of any job, they would say, often they will always say APC, but then if they're more inclusive and aware of the fact that they're non-Christian folks that might be applying to their position, then they would include those other organizations that I just mentioned.
Awesome. So APC, Noah, then is Christian by tradition. Is that correct?
So I think that they will allow folks of other traditions. They are not a Christian organization.
Okay.
My understanding, but I think that it's started probably, I mean, just traditionally maybe in that area, just there were, I assume, but I don't know. I don't know the history specifically, but they do, like, I know there was partnerships, like that they have a partnership with some of these other certifying groups, and they work together. They're all kind of aware of each other to a certain degree. At least I think the Catholic group, the Jewish group, APC, and the VA, I think. Now, there are some other certification programs and groups that are out there, but I don't know anything about them or enough to speak to them. But those are kind of the standards that you'll see across healthcare at this point, at least the most prevalent. And they all kind of get along, it seems like, and understand, like, we all share a lot of the same requirements and processes to get to the certification, and they know that it's best to work together in that regard.
So in the healthcare context, which would you think is more widely recognized, or you know what I'm saying, across, if I wanted to go with any healthcare facility?
APC.
The APC one? Okay.
Yeah, it's the standard.
Okay. Wonderful. So
and I will
Benita,
say, Felicia, they do
say that.
I don't know, I can't speak to the other two groups, but the APC, I know, has certain equivalencies that you can prove if maybe you've done some educational work that doesn't fit into the box that you can check. There are ways that you can prove that you've got the equivalent amount of hours in other ways. And so they're flexible to a certain degree, where they do understand, maybe somebody that has worked for 20 years, some of those hours, some of those years can be used to be an equivalent of something. And so they are generally pretty flexible in that regard to a certain degree.
Right. I guess the only thing I would just add is that there's this level of reciprocity that exists between the VA and APC that I think that only exists, that I'm aware of, in terms of, you've become certified by the VA, you do some paperwork, you do whatever, and then ta-da, you're certified by the APC. I think it doesn't work with that, and I think the other groups that I believe. I think the VA has kind of a special status in that kind of reciprocity.
Okay, so that's probably what Benita was speaking to. Benita, someone was saying that they have 6 CPEs with the VA, but
You're muted.
I'm trying to unmute, and they want to know about certification. So does that, I mean, the CPEs are only a part of the process, right?
Right. Yeah, that's only a part of the process.
Okay, so if
that doesn't guarantee you certification. You still have the paperwork and all of the others to have to do.
Okay, so would they work with the VA, help them to know the next steps, or how would that work?
Are they
toward certification?
Are they employed with the VA? If they're not employed with the VA, you can only be certified through the VA if you're employed with the VA.
Okay. But I guess if they have the 6 CPEs and they wanted to take that to pursue the APC certification, they would.
Yeah, the CPE will go with anyone.
Universal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Noah, you did the APC process. How did you pursue or navigate that?
Well, I mean, it was basically the same, very similar to what Rabbi Aby said. I mean, it's that lengthy process, and you can't even get that certification unless you've done those hours of work as well, like the 2,000 hours, that 1 year, that they want to know that you have been working as a chaplain outside of even the training process.
Oh, really?
So the hours that you did during training, at least in APC, don't count towards those 2,000 hours. So they want to know that, all right, you've done the work of CPE, the formational experience, the training, the education, all those kind of things. How have you been using it since then? How can you prove to us that you've been using that? And so you have to, once, like for me, I finished my CPE program, was fortunate to get a job as a chaplain right after that. And had to work a year before I even applied for certification, just to have that experience and be able to use that experience to prove that I know what I'm doing and that I'm using things in the right way. Yeah, so it's a very similar process from what I can tell. It's a lot of work too. It's you know, it's not just you can write out a paper the night before and submit it. Like, it's not gonna. it's a lot of work to get to that point, but well worth it too. I mean, it's something that the process alone is beneficial, and then once you're done with it, you know, you have to, part of maintaining that certification is for APC is that we have to have 50 hours of continuing education every year. Every 5 years, we have to do a kind of a reevaluation, a management, where you don't necessarily reapply, but you have to go through some of those steps again and have some of your chaplain peers evaluate your work and those kind of things. So it's ongoing work, and for me, I feel like it pushes me to be a better chaplain and pushes me to maintain what I'm doing and push myself to grow even more.
So 2,000 hours, Noah. So how does one even get opportunity to get these hours in that you all are talking about? Where do they find places to be able to get these hours in?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hope that you get a
Do you
job.
have to know somebody or what?
You hope that you get a job, and that I was fortunate that a year of full-time work got me to that point or close to that point. But again, I think where some of that equivalency comes in is that it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be doing full-time paid work. It doesn't mean, I mean, you could be doing part-time chaplaincy work somewhere, and those hours matter. And it may take you a little longer than a year. It may take you a couple years to get some of those hours. But it's, you know, sometimes it is going to take kind of seeking out those opportunities and showing that you've been putting that work into it, even if it's not a traditional setting. I think they're open. These certification groups seem to be open to there being a variety of ways that chaplaincy can exist, and whether that's in healthcare or not. And so I think you can kind of push those boundaries a little bit in proving that you have been doing those hours.
So are we suggesting, is it possible to do chaplaincy work voluntarily? What if you can't, you know, like I said, what if you can't get these part-time jobs or these full-time jobs? What if you don't know anybody? Then what? But I really have a heart and a passion for this. How does one find opportunities? Huh?
You can volunteer. You know, if you're volunteering in a hospital setting or in ministry of some kind, you know, I think that, you know, that would count for some of your hours.
Okay.
Yeah, I would imagine, I haven't looked back at the nitty-gritty of the certification manual, but I would imagine the word supervised experience would be necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you know, I think, yes, I think your question is spot on. Like, you're telling me that now I have to get a job after CPE? Yeah, that's the quickest route, and probably the most fruitful. But I think various types of supervised volunteer experiences would count in terms of the equivalency, in terms of calculating the hours.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just thinking about the fact that everybody wants you to have experience, but nobody wants to give you the experience. And so, you know, that can be challenging. So what advice would you all give to an aspiring chaplain, somebody who is just has a heart to work with the people they love, you know, they have the gift of compassion and mercy, and they really love helping people? What advice would you give them after their head is exploding like mine? You know. Any advice?
You know, for me, chaplaincy is a calling, and when I got involved with chaplaincy, it wasn't something that I chose. It chose me, so to speak. And you know, had finished my MDiv, and I knew that in order to be a chaplain, I had to do the CPE. but I was working. I had another job, and I had children to take care of. I had a child in college and two at home, and to do a residency meant that I would have to live off a stipend. Okay, so let me just say, when you do a CP residency, they you get a salary, but it is more of a stipend than a real salary. So, and that was 20 years ago. It's more now, but still. So, you know, you have to go for it. And really what moved me was 9/11. And I went on and I left my job. I took a big major pay cut, but God provided. We didn't miss a beat. We didn't we didn't miss a meal. I didn't miss paying a bill. I don't know how it happened, but God did it. So when it is a calling, God will provide. And you just take the steps that you need to take, and you get it done one step at a time. It's just one step at a time.
That sounds great. Anybody else on that as far as how you get opportunities? Like, for instance, are there any networking opportunities for one that might be interested in chaplaincy? Any groups, organizations that one might? Mhm.
But I've always, anytime somebody asks me like that has an interest in chaplaincy or just anything in general, to kind of answer the first question, is I just tell people to find opportunities to even just volunteer. My first experience with chaplaincy was when I was in college. I kind of felt this draw to chaplaincy and an interest in chaplaincy, but didn't really know what it was or like how a chaplain even functioned during a day. I didn't have a clue, and was given an opportunity to volunteer at a hospital. And I'm forever grateful for the chaplain there who gave me that opportunity and opened my eyes to what chaplaincy can look like. And there were other things that I have done over the years that I feel like have given me experience that shaped who I am as a chaplain. And I think seeking out opportunities to just learn how to visit with people and spend time listening to people and hearing stories from folks, and you can get an idea if this is something that could be an interest. And to me, that's always a place to start. Just start exploring it that way. Get to know people that are chaplains and reach out to us. And I think that's some of the networking that happens, just kind of the organic ways that you meet people, and CPE being a part of those kind of programs can help with that as well. So that's what I would recommend.
That means you just volunteered. We're putting your contact information in. You say, no, you are. But it's funny you say that, because I was thinking about what Benita was just talking about. I remember back in the day, 100 years ago, when I was younger, they used to have candy stripers. So they had people who would come in and they would volunteer to read to people. They would volunteer to visit with people. And so needless to say, being in those contexts, just volunteering, I'm sure there are all kinds of volunteer opportunities to serve in various capacities, that just getting in there. And when Benita talks about a calling, I'm real big on this calling thing, but I say to people all the time when I'm talking to them about recruiting, where God provides. But I believe that God will help order and navigate your steps and your path, and put you in the path with the right people. But again, I think sometimes we get so focused on, this is what I want to do. But if you really have a heart to serve, and you get in there, because you might also find out by volunteering in a hospital setting, no, this is not really what I thought it was, and this is not what I wanted. And so I think seeking opportunities to serve, can be very beneficial. What do you think about that, Rabbi Aby?
Yeah, I was going to underline exactly what you just said at the end there. I termed it in my little notes that I scribbled for myself on the side, levels of discernment. I think it starts with that calling, as Benita said. You have that experience where you say, this is what I want to seek and pursue. And then you might find out that you hate it.
Yeah.
That it's not for you. That you might enter in your first CPE unit and you are going to get whacked around. And you're going to say, wait, I came to help people. I didn't come to talk about what's going on in my baggage. And then you'll say, maybe this isn't for me. And then maybe you'll keep on going, and maybe you'll start working, and maybe it'll be a few years in, and then maybe a pandemic will hit, and you say, is this for me? I think there are many levels of discernment. I think it's like any undertaking, it's a huge undertaking. And I would say, I mean, we're all a little bit biased in this Zoom room, so it's a particularly hard undertaking to do as well. To a constant giving of yourself can drain you. And I think that you will soon realize, whether it's your first volunteer experience or your first unit of CPE, or you've become boarded certified chaplain, or you're looking for a new job, that you need to go back and draw from that well constantly. So it is not for the faint of heart, and there are many levels of discernment to go into this.
And so you all, I guess, would agree that self-care is very important in that kind of field. You got to have some outlets. You can't, as the word says, you can't pour from an empty fountain or empty pitcher. So self-care would be very important. You all agree?
Yes.
Now, you just mentioned, Rabbi AB, the pandemic. So can you all speak to how chaplaincy has changed during the pandemic? I know you guys probably had to do some stop, dropping, and rolling. So how has it, how has that changed? What kind of flexibility has been necessary on your part?
Lots of flexibility has been necessary. The pandemic. Oh, I could say so much, but self-care has been vital for this, to manage during this pandemic. Constantly monitoring what's going on with you, and because you have to be the spiritual leader, you have to be the family member who cannot be there with the patient. You have to be the counselor, the pastoral counselor for the staff. Not that you're not anyway, but it's just more. It's, it has been more intense. Just trying to, we're at a better place right now, but at first, of course, family members couldn't come in, so we had to be everything. Only thing I wasn't was a nurse or a doctor, but everything else I had to try to manage. And COVID just it's been tough. It's been tough. We've had staff to leave and breakdowns and all of that. So trying to take care of myself in the midst of a lot of sickness. It's just been, and this is the chaplain's work. Trying to take care of yourself in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of sickness, death, and dying, and feelings of helplessness, and what else can be done. It has been rough. It really has. And I'm glad we are at where we are, and I just pray that we can kind of keep this pandemic at bay. But it is tough. It has been tough emotionally. It has been difficult at times, physically. I did not get COVID. I did take the vaccine. So it, and that helped me not to, because I didn't want to have to, get sick and then not be able to take care of anyone else. But it's been one of the most trying times in my ministry, in my 20 years of ministry.
Amazing, because I think about the fact we see all the time how there's so much more death that people are dealing with, and sickness, and I could not even imagine what it would be like to, yeah, and guilt on the part of people who can't be there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Talking to families on the phone, with wives, trying to give updates, trying to comfort, trying to do whatever you can. Wow. It's heavy. It can be heavy. This job can be heavy at times.
It is the Lord's doing. Well, you guys have some company that has just come in to help you out. We got some new batters up. We have Rhonda Gilligan Gillespie from Methodist Hospital. And then we have, no, she's not. Oh,
Hey.
just Dr. Ramsey?
No, not Dr. Ramsey yet.
Okay.
Just Rhonda.
Just Rhonda. Okay. All right. So not Dr. Ramsey yet, but he's coming. So we have Rhonda from Methodist Hospital. Rhonda, they've been holding it down, but we've been asking questions. A lot of people have questions about board certification and how one can find opportunities. And Bonita and Rabbi Aby and Noah said we've got to have all these CPEs and we've got to have all these hours beyond CPEs. And so, we're looking, do you all, first of all, Bonita was saying they no longer do single unit CPEs at the VA. Do you all at Methodist?
We do not.
You do not either?
Right. We don't have the resources to be able to offer those programs. There's
Okay.
a very dire shortage right now of CPE educators.
Mhm.
So, we hope to do that in the future. We had been doing one internship group a year, but the last one we were able to do was in 2019.
Wow. So you all are not even doing the residencies like the VA right now, Rhonda?
No, we do have residencies. We have generally between 6 and 7 positions annually for
Okay.
PE in a residency. And because there are so few internship availabilities in the city, we don't require a prior unit of CPE to get into our residency program.
Well, that's good news. That's wonderful. Well, speaking of which then, since we're talking about kind of shortages, first of all of the other panelists have said that the MDiv is an absolute requirement to participate in their chaplaincy opportunities. Does Methodist require the MDiv?
Certainly for a staff chaplain position, yes. The only exception to that would be if a candidate came from a faith tradition where an MDiv was not a part of the requirement. So they might have a different type of degree. So for the folks that I would say for the vast majority of people, the MDiv is the degree that their denomination holds them to. And
Okay.
certainly the Association of Professional Chaplains also. But there are some other endorsement and
Certifications. Yeah, because we have Rabbi Aby on here, and he was explaining that his was a little different because he went through is it AJC? What is it, Rabbi Aby? Help me out.
NAJC, the National Association of
okay.
Jewish Chaplains. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So yes,
Yeah.
but the bottom line is, and so they were the other panelists were sharing about 72 hours as far as your degree programs, master's degree programs. Is that pretty much it at Methodist too?
Well, certainly that's the minimum of an MDiv degree. There are other places that the MDiv might be 90 hours, or for instance, my MDiv, when I completed it, it was 102 hours.
Oh, Lord.
So, but the APC, the Association of Professional Chaplains, only requires 72 hours towards
Right.
the MDiv.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I was actually thinking of my colleague, Rabbi Aby, when thinking of it, he doesn't have an MDiv because
Right.
his faith tradition does not
Right.
require that. But he he has a very strenuous degree that is within holding of the MDiv.
Yes, he has explained that to us. He says it's hard.
Well, I didn't even know that, Rabbi, and there I am saying the exact same thing you are.
Yes, you are aligning with them. One person asked, are there opportunities to be active with crisis management for emergency services, like with the police and others as pastoral care chaplains? Is it possible that maybe the requirements might be not as strenuous or rigorous in those contexts, do you think? Like maybe they don't require, maybe you don't have to have an MDiv or, what do you,
Or
any,
is
do
that
any of you,
question, is that directed towards me?
that's directed towards any of you on the panel. Are any of you familiar with individuals? So, because of course we know the police department does have chaplains.
Yeah, they have some type of program, but I'm not familiar with, I know a couple of people that have gone through it, but
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with the requirements or
Okay.
what they can do once they finish that program.
Now I'm going to
What
ask,
I feel like-
go ahead,
I
Noah.
guess at least what I've seen or experienced, there are a lot of volunteer programs and training programs like the one that's here. It seems rare that you would find some of those requirements needed, but I do know, I remember when I went through the whole board certification process, one of the chaplains that interviewed me was a chaplain with I believe the New Orleans Police Department. And they had a very robust chaplaincy program, and their chaplains, I believe, were required to have some of those degree requirements and board certification and those kind of things. So it exists. I think there are places where it exists, but it may look different depending on your community and what the departments are.
So what I'm hearing you all say is the MDiv would create more opportunity. I mean, a person may have more opportunity because so many, for instance, you all talk about in healthcare, them requiring that level of education. So, but it is possible in other contexts that we'll be talking about this week. For instance, we'll be talking about people in education and prisons and that type of thing, that perhaps in those other areas they may or may not necessarily require as rigorous academic preparation, you think?
Certainly here in Memphis, in the surrounding communities, the chaplains are volunteers, and they might actually be police officers. There is a police officer who is over the Memphis police chaplains in the Collierville and the Bartlett and the Germantown and all of the surrounding areas. And the folks who go through, they have their own training. It's usually about a 2-week training to become a chaplain for the police force. So no, you don't actually have to have an MDiv. A lot of the folks I know who went through that program don't. So you get some experience and you're on call for emergencies, but it's not a paid position to my knowledge. However, I would lift up that a couple of weeks ago when there was the shooting in Collierville at the Kroger, that 3 chaplains were there on site, and they had just gone through the Collierville police training. So it definitely gives you crisis experience and just overall chaplain experience. So, and of course, we're in ministry. We tend to feel like we're called to ministry. So that would be an expression of, a type of chaplaincy that people might feel called to.
Awesome. One of the things that that Rabbi Aby referenced, however, because we talked about volunteer opportunities, but he was saying that probably it would be necessary for those to be supervised, the supervised opportunities under someone who is licensed and certified. Do you think that's the case, Rhonda, in those contexts? Or, for instance, what I guess I'm asking is, could someone perhaps volunteering in those capacities, could those hours maybe go towards these 2,000 hours that Noah's put out here?
Well, sure, they could, as long as all of the other qualifications have been met, with the CPE and the MDiv. So the APC is very generous in looking at the hours. They don't have to be employed hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where does one go to find out all this information about the APC? Where can we look that up if somebody were interested in chaplaincy? Not speaking for moi, but
I think the APC website is professionalchaplains.org.
Okay.
If you just Google Association of Professional Chaplains, or I think you can find it that way. And they have a lot of information. It's a group that you can be a part of, even if you're not a board certified chaplain. You can be a part of that organization just for resources and those kind of things as well. So it's a helpful site just to learn. And then it also has all the information about board certification and those kind of things. Yeah.
Well, you know what? My director is always putting FAQs out on our website. So maybe she'll put that out there at some point, how to find that information. But one person asked, is there a charge or a cost to participating? They specifically said in Rhonda's residency setting. So I think they actually get paid to do that, don't they, Rhonda? They don't pay you. You all pay them, don't you?
That is correct. The residents receive a stipend. Our stipend is approximately $37,000 annually. There's health benefits.
Look at Noah's eyebrows.
Yes, it went up considerably since you've gone through CPE. Noah.
So I can imagine that's very competitive, Rhonda. If I wanted to compete, if I wanted you to sift through these hundreds of resumes that you receive, what would make mine rise to the top? What do I need to do? What would make mine stand out?
Well, the written narrative that is a part of the application really is the pivotal part of, when we are screening the applications. So folks send in their application, we go through them and we select a certain number of them, and those folks are interviewed. And from that group of people, we make offers for the 4-unit residency. So it's really the written document that is, authored by the student who's applying. So, you really just want to do your very best to answer the questions and to do it thoroughly, and to try to do it with, a really high level of self-awareness, to talk about your own personal history and your understanding of how you came to be in ministry. So the folks that are writing in that manner, where they're, absolutely demonstrating good self-awareness and understanding their call to chaplaincy, then those folks we tend to put, in the stack of we'd like to interview these people. And then going forward from there, the interview would be a pivotal part as well. And just to kind of answer that other question, the Methodist Lavonder Healthcare does not charge any tuition, any application fee, and we pay for all the textbooks that are required by the year.
So see, Noah, you didn't even tell us that you were privileged to participate in that process. So, but what I'm hearing you say, Rhonda, is that being able to articulate your spiritual journey in such a way that takes into consideration not just the fact that you want to help people, but you talked about the self-awareness, all of that factors in, correct?
Sure. Events from your personal history and how that's impacted your personal and your professional formation.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time for today. Thank you all so much for your participation. We are so excited to have you. I know that you all have been a blessing and have answered a lot of questions. I'm sure there are a lot more questions. Are any of you willing to allow us to share your contact information so that if anyone wants to follow up with you about it, about any additional questions. Rabbi Aby said yes. Anybody else?
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
Thank
but I'm
you.
gonna only be there for a little while longer. I'm
I-
getting ready to retire.
okay. Well, see, so somebody needs to take your place, so they need to connect with you, Benita. Thank you all so much. Again, we are so grateful. I would have asked if you have any regrets, but see, that was not a part of the Lord's plan. So, again, we're so excited to have you all. So excited that many of you have that all of you are connected to Memphis Theological Seminary and are just a reflection of the great educational experience that we have here. And then I understand that Rabbi Aby is actually going to be doing some teaching for us. So you all come on through if you haven't done so. And we would love to have you as a student here at Memphis Theological Seminary if you are not. So give us a call. What?
Dr. Ramsey's next.
Oh, Dr. Ramsey's here?
Yeah.
Yay! Dr. Ramsey has joined us. So our professor, look at that picture of him and that grandbaby. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Ramsey is going to be retiring within the next year. And I think that grandbaby has been a major inspiration and motivation, that's what he's going to be spending his time caring for the baby. So thank you again, panel. You're welcome to stay on if you would like, but Dr. Ramsey is going to be answering questions. So Facebook family, if you have any specific questions for Dr. Ramsey, Dr. Ramsey, this panel has done a great job telling us about this chaplaincy thing. My goodness. First of all, we understand it's a calling. Second of all, we know that it's a lot of work and you really have to have a heart for it and be willing to do the work and get to know people to get these opportunities.
It's great to see y'all, Noah and Benita and Rhonda. Rabbi Aby, I don't believe we've had a chance to meet, but I hope we will soon in the near future. And let me just add my thanks to Dr. Levance about y'all spending your evening with us and giving us your time. I just caught the last 20 minutes or so, but thank you all so much. It's wonderful to see folks who come through our MDiv program wind up out doing chaplaincy work. And I honestly feel really good about knowing that when some of my parishioners or people that I know and love are winding up in the hospital, that I have some points of contact with people that I know by name and by experience. So thank y'all all for the wonderful ministries you're doing. And we hope to be sending some more students your way.
That's right, because Dr. Ramsey helps them get their foundation here at Memphis Theological Seminary. So Dr. Ramsey, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure, y'all, the rest of y'all feel free to leave if you need to. We've already taken up your time, but I'll continue on for a few minutes with the students or whoever likes to stay. So let me just say a brief word. I was kind of overhearing that conversation. I mean, one, just to stress again with the students or potential students who might be listening in tonight or watching, that really the MDiv is the foundational degree that you want to have if you're interested in chaplaincy. There are some routes through the Masters of Christian Arts and Ministry, and a lot of that would depend on your denomination. But if I were in your shoes and say starting out or considering coming to seminary, I would really encourage you to look at the full Masters of Divinity that would give you the broadest theological, biblical, and pastoral preparation for any kind of ministry. And in your case, would further your foundation for chaplaincy and pastoral care. The other thing I wanted to say was what you heard there seemed very real to me, that right now the field of chaplaincy is in a lot of change and a lot of flux. The normal pathways into chaplaincy are broadening, they're changing. This is in response to our culture. It's in response to budgets within hospitals and institutions. And it's probably in response to things like COVID even. That is, the more recent arrival of the enemy that we hope and pray we've seen the worst of now. And so part of the takeaway here is, as you work on your MDiv and move towards a certificate in chaplaincy or eventually certification in chaplaincy, we want to do everything we can to help you cross over those hurdles as they come up. And part of that will be remaining flexible and recognizing that in terms of your work within, say, a hospital or a prison or a senior care center or a hospice, they have their own sets of standards. And we relate to those people and we know a lot of them, but we don't set their standards for them, obviously. And so we're trying to stay on top of them, and we'll continue to as much as we can and try to help you meet whatever challenges come before you. You won't be on your own, in other words, when you come through the MDiv program and are looking down the road prayerfully towards a calling into chaplaincy. And, you know, for those of you for whom, well, I might want to test the waters on this, but this may or may not be who I think God is calling me to be, or maybe it is, then our clinical practicum is a very one course for 3 credit hours within the MDiv that gives you about a 50-hour introduction to volunteer chaplaincy. And believe me, I'm sure Felicia can verify this, and Fakisha too. You get enough to know whether or not this is something you want to pursue more fully through the clinical practicum, or whether you say, you know, that's great. I'm really glad there are lots of chaplains out there like Noah and Rhonda and Benita and others, but it's not really who I am, right? So if you come to seminary with that open mind, even though you have some strong inclination towards chaplaincy, I think the Lord will continue to work and guide you, and we will as your community of support. So.
Yeah, Dr. Ramsey, Dr. Rabbi Aby was talking about verbatims, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember those.
Exactly.
In the clinical practicum, yes.
Yeah.
And remember also being in class, I think about some who were in my class that now are chaplains, who that process really helped solidify whether or not this is what they felt called to do, particularly those who would do their and so when you were talking about we can find out whether or not that's what we want to do, I remember sitting in the conversations and someone who had done their residency at Regional 1 and talking about being in there with somebody who had half their face shut off, and I was like, oh no, that ain't for me. That's
not for me. Yeah.
That's for me. So, but again, yeah, the clinical practicum does help. One of the questions that came up, Dr. Ramsey, is does the Doctor of Ministry in Faith and Health curriculum include some certification? And I know you don't deal with the certification aspect, but I know you do teach in that. You actually teach one of the classes in that program. Right. And I know they do have some supervised, matter of fact, they have a requirement of working under supervision. So can you speak to whether or not if that supervision would count towards the hours necessary?
Yeah. So the Doctor of Ministry in Faith and Health, yes, I don't direct that program, but I'm involved with it on an ongoing basis in terms of teaching. It does not provide you certification towards chaplaincy like we're talking about here tonight. It certainly would look good on your dossier or your resume to have said that you have a Doctor of Ministry in Faith and Health that has really taken you to even a deeper level of study in the area of pastoral care and counseling. And a number of our chaplains, like Rhonda Gilligan Gillespie, is actually completing that degree herself now, even as she's the director of the pastoral education program at Methodist University Hospital. So that program, though, is really set out to accomplish 2 things. One, to develop your specialty skills in pastoral care for use in the local congregation or another context for ministry, like a parachurch organization, a community-based ministry, faith-based ministry of some sort, even in a school, for example, if you might be the chaplain there, either volunteer or paid. that you could focus on becoming a better listener, becoming a better ability to evaluate, know what sort of referrals need to be made, how to analyze a person's needs, psychological, emotional, to analyze them also theologically and spiritually. That's one focus of that program. The other focus is for those students who want to be professional counselors. This is different from professional chaplains. Professional counselors who you really think you want to pursue certification in that area, then our D-men will get you a lot of the credits that you need. But as Dr. Levan is saying, there are also external state certification requirements that we would help prepare you to begin to be ready to meet. In other words, you'd have all the academic courses, but you're still going to have to do supervised counseling with a certified supervisor and undergo your own counseling. In other words, physician, heal thyself, right?
Mhm.
It'd be hard to offer therapy to someone, pastoral therapy, if you haven't gone through therapy yourself.
And now it's interesting you say that, Dr. Ramsey, because from what I have heard, a lot of therapists have their own therapist.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so
we all need helpers and supporters, and there's no shame in that at all. In fact, that's a strength to be able to go to somebody and say, hey, I'm confused here. I'm trying to figure out, what's going on within myself, as well as what's going on with the people that I'm working with. Can I bounce some things off of you?
particularly because you have that oath of confidentiality, and to have to internalize all of that, it can be necessary to have some help with that process, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But trying to be a certified and licensed counselor without doing your own counseling would be sort of like trying to be a preacher without ever having sat in the pew.
Yeah. One question someone asked, when would you take the practicum with an MD if it was more of a capstone course? I know that when we took it, it was towards the end. I don't know, is it possible to take the practicum earlier?
It is possible now to take it a lot earlier. You're right. We were looking at it as more kind of at the end of the semester. That part of that was we had so many students, there was some bottleneck there. We had to kind of space them out. Now, given where we are, you could take, as long as you take the Intro to Pastoral Care, which is the bread and butter class that I teach, the history and theology of pastoral care, then you would be eligible to sign up for the clinical practicum as soon as you would.
Really?
It could be one semester in the next semester for that matter. Mm-hmm.
I feel punished, Dr. Ramsey.
No. Not at all.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Ramsey? He will be with us throughout the week, but he is our resident expert. Dr. Ramsey, can you speak to the fact that, because when people are talking about trying to get in these, they question how can they get opportunities to do the CPEs, and how can they get opportunities to get hours towards the certification? I recall for those of my classmates who did go on to do that, that you kind of help them navigate that process and identify opportunities, right?
Yeah, I did. And this, to be totally frank with those who are listening tonight, that was news to me tonight from Dr. Reverend Gilligan Gillespie, that Methodist and the VA that Reverend Livingston was saying have stopped their 1 unit CPEs. That's new. That is brand news. So that changes the game for us a little bit here in Memphis, and will be something that at this point, I would just like to say to people that are listening in, we will take that under real serious consideration in terms of our curriculum here at Memphis Theological Seminary. I would say and encourage you, if you were looking for a site for CPE for 1 unit, which is 400 hours, 400 contact hours within a hospital or a similar setting, that you go to acpe.edu.
Okay, that's great.
acpe.edu, and they have a directory of all their licensed centers around the entire United States. And for example, we had one student last summer who couldn't get a placement in Memphis, And so she went to Southern Indiana and did a summer CPE. You might find that there's a spot open in Little Rock, depending on where you live, or that there's a spot open in Jackson, Mississippi or Nashville. And you may have to expand your boundaries a little bit, given that the programs, at least have temporarily halted here in Memphis for that one unit.
That's
Right.
awesome, Dr. Ramsey, because I know Noah did his in Nashville. So to be open, for people to be flexible and be open, and to
Yeah.
know that it can be done in a summer program.
It can be,
that's great.
absolutely. Yeah, it can be done in an 8 to 10 week period in the summer, probably closer to 10.
Okay.
But I wouldn't get too discouraged, and encourage you to look broadly if you're not going to be able to find anything here in the Memphis area. And I'm not assuming everybody, I don't know who all is listening in, but I'm not assuming you're all from Memphis anyway. So.
Well, that is wonderful. Well, Dr.
Yeah.
Ramsey, we are not going to hold you since we're going to be needing your
Absolutely.
expertise the rest of the week. So thank you again so much for joining us. And for those of you who are on with us, if you have other questions, we strongly encourage you to join us the rest of the week where you can get other perspectives. And as Dr. Ramsey said, don't be disheartened because there are other opportunities. When God calls, then that means that God, I say all the time, where God guides, God provides. So listen in. We look forward to seeing you the rest of the week, and everyone have a great evening.
All right.
See you tomorrow, Dr. Ramsey.
See you, Felicia. Bye, Fakisha.